Good morning. Welcome to A Simply Good Life. My name's Cheryl. I grabbed the camera this morning and thought I would just film what I'm up to today, which is preserving some apples, bottling them, canning them, whatever word you want to use. And I'll just be following the recipe in the ball preserving book that I've got here. So come along. The first thing I need to do is peel the apples. I don't know if you can see that very well, but I've just got some plain water here and I've squeezed half a lemon into the water and just popped the rest of the lemon in. And that's just, once I've peeled all the apples and cut them up, just throw them in the lemon water to stop them going brown. So you don't need to watch me peel 5 kilos of apples that I'm working with. So I'll just pop over to the sink, peel these, and I'll be back soon. Okay, so as you can see, I've gone ahead and peeled and chopped up all those apples. I weigh them down with a plate just to keep them submerged under the lemon water. Doesn't matter if they go a little bit brown. I prefer to chop them up into chunks like this, but you can do slices, you can do them thinner, whatever you want really. Up the back up here, I've started warming up and dissolving 2 1/4 cups of sugar into 5 1/4 cups of water, and that's a light syrup. You can do a medium syrup, heavy syrup, and you could even use plain water if you want to, but I find the syrup just adds to the flavour and helps with the colour of the apples. So that's what I've got going on in there. This is my water bath canner, and I've just got some jars in there just staying warm, ready for receiving the apples shortly. So that's where we're up to, and I'll come back shortly. So I just want to show you the Fowler Vacola jars that I'm using. They got all sorts of sizes and shapes. They're a glass jar with a rubber ring. You can buy the rings new. When you put, I'm just going to give you a few tips and tricks. When you put the rubber ring on, I don't know if the camera is going to pick that up. Can you see how it's got a twist there? You want to avoid that twist. So you just need to flick it around a little bit like that. Have a little play with it. Spin it around. And eventually you'll just get the rubber ring to seat in there nice and smooth with no twists or buckles or anything like that. Okay, so that's one tip. The other trick or tip, make sure you've got no cracks or chips or anything in your glass jars, no matter what jars you're using. That's a good tip. And something to note with the Fowler jars, hang on, this one's, oh yep, I don't know if the camera will pick it up. Let me just have a look. Can you see that line? I'll try and put my finger on it. I don't know, it's just along there. Now, at first glance that looks like a crack in the jar, but it's actually not. It's part of the manufacturing process when they made the Fowler jars. So don't be concerned about a big long crack like that. It's not a crack, a seam. A seam is a better word. So I found a jar the other day with a proper crack in it, and it was on the bottom, and I was just inspecting the jar, and when I ran my finger across it, you could actually, with your nail, you could feel the ridge line. I've got the dog and the husband in the background making noise. It's okay. Yeah, so with my fingernail, I could feel the ridge, and I knew that that was a proper crack in the jar. So that's to be, avoided. Don't use those jars. They're good for storage, for dry goods or vases or, anything else really. And the other thing, hang on, I just want to get some lids. Here they are. These are the lids, okay, and they just sit over the top like that. And then there's a clip. So Just bear with me for a minute. So, can you see how the clip is seated in the little corner over there, but it's not in the right spot over here? They need to both sit in the right spot either side and clip down properly. And, you know, good practice just to keep it in the centre of the lid, in the centre of the jar, sorry, just like that. So that's just a couple of things. The other thing I've found, sometimes because the jars all might be called, I think this is a number 31, but there's different, they must have come out of different factories or been made at different times of the year, like different years I should say. Some might be older, some might be newer. But oftentimes some jars will be thicker, some jars will be thinner, and the lids don't, some jars I've had, the lid, even with the rubber ring, the lid is really loose on it. So I've either gone and found a different jar with a better fitting lid. It doesn't have to fit. I don't know how to describe this. You'll know when you play around with them, you'll know if you've got Fowler jars. Sometimes they're a little bit too tight and you can't quite sit that lid on properly. I don't like that. I like to make it to where you can just pop the lid on. It doesn't feel loose, it doesn't feel tight, it's just right, you know, and that's good. That's a good thing. That's going to help your overall seal rate at the end of the process. So a couple of tips. With your bands seated nice and properly in their little groove, make sure the lid isn't, you know, it's a good fit for the jar. Of course, all these jars, I don't even know if I mentioned this, I wash them up in hot soapy water before I use them. The jars, the lids and the rings and the clips all get washed in hot soapy water. You can run them through the dishwasher. I tend to just wash them by hand because I'm kind of inspecting the jars while I'm washing them by hand, and I only had 8 or 10 jars to wash up, so it wasn't a big deal. So anyway, a few tips there. And this syrup has just come to a boil, so I'm going to just get my apples out of the lemon water, drain most of the water off, and just start plunging them into that syrup. Actually, I'm not sure if I mentioned I did a 1.5 times syrup amount, because I looked at one batch of syrup in the pot and it just, I thought, oh, I don't know if that's going to be enough. I'd rather have a little bit too much than not enough, because when you go to bottle, if you don't have enough syrup, it's quite a pain to have to quickly make another batch. And you can always freeze any leftover syrup. You could even jar it up, put it through the water bath canner. It won't go to waste. So we're going to put these in the simmering syrup for about 5 minutes, the book says, but it might be a little bit longer than that. I like the apples to be al dente, I guess, is what I'm looking for. I've cut mine a bit chunkier, so it might be a couple of minutes longer. I'm just going to turn that one off. Oh, I hope I've got enough syrup. This has made a bigger pot than I thought. Maybe I should have doubled the syrup. A little bit of liquid might come out of the apples. It's been a long time since I've done this, so I'm not sure. Can't remember. About to find out together. All right. Have a look. Oh dear. Oh, well, no, I think it'll be okay. I'm going to let this simmer for 5 minutes and I'll bring you back. Okay, so the apples have been simmering for about 5 minutes. I took one out and tested it, and it's just got a little bit of give in it, so that's how I like to cook them. When you process them in the water bath canner, they're in boiling water for another 20 minutes, so that can soften them a little bit more. So I'd rather keep them a little bit under than cook them too much in the first round. I think I'll try and move the camera and just show you. I think you can see that. There. So that's the apples done. Okay, so rings on jars, checking that the ring has seated itself properly. That looks really good. The jars are warm, just out of the pot, because we want to put the warm apples into warm jars. We can risk cracking jars if hot things go into cold jars. So, all right. So with a slotted spoon, but I might actually, I think I'll use a spoon. I might see how I go with this. Alrighty, we're just going to start filling our jars up. I'll just up. Ow, ow, hot, hot. No, a slotted spoon might be better actually. Gonna eat that one. Oh, hot. All right. Okay, just gonna push that down just a little bit. Oh, that's pretty good, really. I'm going to top it up with some juice and some extra apples, and we're looking for a 1 centimetre headspace, which is the distance between the top of the food and the top of the jar. Actually, I might get a jug. It's going to be way easier. Way, way easier. Now, you want to get the bubbles out. Just get whatever you've got handy. Be gentle. Chopsticks. There's a lot of bubbles in this, quite a lot of bubbles. Oh, what a messer. This little thingy here measures the headspace. So we want, is it 1/2 inch or 1/4? Hang on. 1/2 inch. 1/2 inch. 1 centimetre, 1/2 inch. So I just need to top that up till we get to the 1/2 inch mark. That's pretty good. Just go a bit more in there. All right. Close enough, close enough. All right. So the next, this is a really important step. Just want to get some vinegar onto a clean cloth, and you want to clean the top of your jars to get any sugar syrup or any bits of apple off it. You can affect your seal if you don't do that, and I tend to be, you know, I'll give the whole top of the glass plus the purple bit and even around the sides a good wipe. Okay, then you want your lid and you want a clip. Just check that you've got it seated in the right spot. Yep. I don't know if you can, oh, it's a bit warm. See that? Oh, too hot. Pop that into the warm water to stay warm and we'll keep going. All right, I'll bring you back. Okay, so I've filled up my jars with my apples and my syrup. For the record, I had way too much syrup. Easily could have just done a single batch of syrup for 5 kilos of apples, as per the ball book. The syrup amounts as per the ball book. I filled 5 number 30 Fowler Vacola jars, which are approximately equivalent to the American quart size jar. If you're using the ball jars, they're a quart, the big ones. So they are in the hot water in this big pot, and I'm going to bring this up to a rapid boil and with the lid on, and I'm going to boil them for 20 minutes to process them, and I'll come back after that. So I don't know what I'm going to do with all that syrup. And another thing too, as I am preserving more, I'm trying to keep records for my purposes, so that I can look back and say, 5 kilos of apples will give me 5 number, they were 30s, weren't they? 5 number 30s? I think so. Hang on. Yes, trust your brain, Cheryl. 31s. So I'll keep a record of that. That's good to know. And that's a workable batch actually. 5 kilos, 5 jars, really workable. I like that. To do 10 kilos would be a big job. These apples are sold at my local greengrocer, and they are only $2 a kilo for the big green apples. They're sold as juicing apples. The only thing I can see wrong with them is that they're actually quite giant in size, so they taste fine to eat, but that's how I get them fairly cheap. So for $10 I've got 5 enormous jars of preserved apples. And so what do I do with them when they're sealed and on the shelf? When I get the hankering for an apple pie, I'll grab one of these off the shelf. I'll make an apple pie, apple crumble. If a recipe calls for apple puree, you could easily drain the liquid off and just get your stick blender in there, make up an apple puree. Anything else you can think of that you might need apples for, that's good for that. I'll bring you back when I'm I'll show you a picture of them boiling, and I'll bring you back when I'm taking them out of the pot, and then we'll leave them to sit overnight to seal properly. Don't touch them for 12 to 24 hours. And then we'll check the seal, so that'll be tomorrow morning sometime. And thanks for joining me. It's always a bit awkward doing YouTube videos, but it's a bit of fun and a bit of a hobby. I was thinking maybe my next video should be the making of the apple pies, so if that's something you're interested in, maybe let me know in the comments. Alrighty, we'll be back soon. Okay, so our pot here has come up to a boil, and I should have mentioned when I put the jars in, you need to make sure they're covered by at least an inch of water. Bring it up to the boil, start timing from when it gets to a rapid boil for 20 minutes. We're going to process these jars for. It's the next day, and our jars have sat out overnight to cool properly and to seal. And I'll just show you, we don't store our jars with the clips on, we take those off. And just a bit of a tip with these Fowler jars, I've always found, I hope you can see that, just slide them off like that with 2 thumbs. Sometimes when I was new to preserving in Fowler jars, I'd try and flick the clips off that way, and I actually lifted the lid a couple of times and broke the seal. So we're just going to flip all the clips off to start with. Okay, so you can do, there's a couple of ways to check. I mean, the obvious way is to lift the jar by the lid, and you can see that that's not going anywhere. But you can also do the pencil test. I think you'll be able to see that there. I'll bring it in. I don't know if you can see that or not. You can sort of see the dip in the lid. So that sort of concave, convex, concave, it's too early. That little dip in the lid is a sign that it's sealed as well. So, you know, it's just a visual thing. I mean, you don't even really need the pencil. You can sort of see it with the naked eye. Oh, now look at that. That one's not as dippy. That'll be interesting. Let's lift this one up by the lid and check it. It has got a little dip, but just not as good as the others. Nope, that's okay. That's fine. So try and pull the lid off. If the lid doesn't pull off and you've got your dip, you've got a good seal. I'll just show you here. You can see there's a bit of floatage and a bit of liquid. Don't worry about it, that's perfectly fine. I probably just could have packed the apples a bit tighter. And just, I wonder if it's going to pick up the bubbles. You'll see some bubbles in there as well. Perfectly normal, don't worry about it. I don't know the technical reason for it, but I know that it's fine. I've opened jars and eaten them like that. Still alive to tell the tale. I forgot to mention, make sure you label what it is in the container before you put it on the shelf. And also, I was a bit sloppy when I was filling these up, so I might just get a bit of warm soapy water and just wash the outside of the jars, just to make sure that, you know, there's no goop on there that might go mouldy or yucky over time. So there you go. That's A Simply Good Life, preserving apples. Thanks for sticking around, and don't forget, if you would like to see me make something with the apples, a pie maybe, let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, bye. Is that recording? Hang on. Good morning, YouTubers. Nope, not that.